Hello and welcome to Science Unscripted. It's Connor here.
And Gabe.
And what you may have already heard there is that Gabe's voice is absolutely shot.
Yeah, I'm a little under the weather. I'm a little under the weather. I got a bit of a cold, that's it. Not full-blown laryngitis, but a little cold, yeah.
Yeah, so Gabe has joined many people here in the Northern Hemisphere who are suffering a spate of different illnesses and infections at this point of the year. That we wanted to mention. We also wanted to mention that we are saving your emails for next week because we have so much science to talk about this week.
Yeah.
And as part of that, we had a chance to speak to a colleague of ours. And we did that, Gabe, before you...
Again, yeah, so that interview was recorded yesterday, and at that point in time, my voice wasn't like that. So don't be alarmed at the difference.
Oh, no, they would be relieved. Right? Oh, Gabe's better now. So
yes, because at the end of the show, my voice is going to get bad again because then we did an interview that we just recorded. We're going to be jumping back and forth. It's all good.
It's all good. So stick with us as we first take a look into some fascinating research on cats.
DW. Made for minds.
What do cats have to do with human beings and cancer? That was an article written by our esteemed colleague, Matthew Ward Aegis, who's sitting in the studio with us right now. Connor, thank you for joining us, Matt.
As ever, I feel privileged to be with you two esteemed individuals as well.
Thank you, Matt.
Now that the flattery's over.
No, seriously, cats, human beings, and an onco. What did they create?
Yeah, oncogenome.
An oncogenome.
And onco. What is that? Well, you think of in the same terms of oncology. Cancer medicine. If you have an oncologist, you've got either confirmed or potentially some bad news coming your way, because that is the sort of branch of science that deals with cancers and tumours and that sort of thing. And a group has now gone and developed, I say a group, an international group, so led by a team from the Wellcome Sanger Institute in the UK, but working across Switzerland and also some groups in Canada, have gone and created this. I'm not going to call it an oncogenome. I'm going to call it a cancer genome of cancers in cats, in felines. And what they found is that, perhaps unsurprisingly, the genes found commonly in cat cancers are very similar to the mutated genes that we have in human cancers. And potentially this means that we can use cats to understand the way that cancer is triggered, grows, develops, and potentially treatable in humans.
I was going to jump onto the treatable first. We are, I think, all very familiar with cancer research happening in mice. And so what is the argument here for doing this with cats? I mean, why?
So a rodent model in the lab is bred to show the thing that a science group wants to test. So if you want to see the way that breast cancer is in a mouse model, you birth the rat usually, or the mouse, with the mutation in place. And so, of course, the mammal in this lab scenario develops the cancer that you want to study. It's a post-mutation model. What they are looking for in this case is what happens if we see it happen spontaneously in an animal in the same way that we might see it spontaneously happen in a human. And I mean, spontaneously, cancer just comes out of nowhere, right? One day you have cancer, you don't have cancer, one day you do have cancer. And so with this, we're calling them models, they're cats. In the real world, they're not lab cats or anything like that. The argument is that we can potentially look at these as more relevant models of cancer development. And because we've now got a record of it effectively, we think of a genome as the record of all the genes in a human. A cancer genome ostensibly is the cancerous equivalent. It allows scientists to say, hey, we've seen this in this cat, maybe this is happening in a human.
So you're looking at what genes in these cats are becoming mutated and then getting cancer, and then you're seeing does that happen to the same genes in humans, and then you could see
Yeah.
is
Gene,
that it?
Gene FBXW7 is a gene in humans that, when mutated, is associated with the development of quite aggressive breast cancer. It's not necessarily a common gene. It's not the most common gene which is associated with developing breast cancer, but when this one mutates, it can be quite aggressive. What they found is that in 50% of the cats studied, most of which were domestic short hairs, or if you're from the British English-speaking world, like a moggy, a non-pedigree cat, common house cat.
Yeah.
In 50% of the cats studied, they had a mutation to this gene as well, and they developed mammary cancer, a feline equivalent, effectively. So, what you're able to do is say, hey, look, this gene, because we are mammals, we do share a lot of the same genetic material. If this gene's mutating in humans, we're also seeing it's mutating in cats and producing a very similar form of cancer. Now, maybe we can see if new cancer develop with certain genes in a cat, is there a human equivalent taking place as well? But I think also the really interesting thing about this is that these were described as heterogeneous models, which a homogeneous model is like as we said, a lab rodent. You know, we are breeding these animals to do the thing that we want to study. Because it's heterogeneous, not every cat lives in the same place. These cats were taken from 6 different countries. So the environments that a cat might be living in, say, Austria, is different to a cat living on the other side of the world in New Zealand. Different conditions. So what we are now able to also see is maybe there are environmental factors that play into it. And certainly humans live with their pets. So we can see whether or not potentially in the future is a cat or even a dog. You know, cats are the second most common pet in the world. Dogs are the first most common. But if we find a cancer occurring in one of these animals that we live with, could it be an indicator that there's something wrong in the environment that animal is in that could actually signal a potential risk to their human owners?
If there's a corresponding number of humans who are also getting that cancer, yeah.
Yeah, but in this case, even on like this really like micro level, your dog has been found to have cancer. Is there something in your house that might have triggered that?
Oh, my God. Okay.
And therefore, is that a warning sign for you potentially? Now, that's not what this study is doing, but it is, when I spoke to the researchers, the sort of end destination a piece of research like this could end up with further work being done. You might actually one day be able to start asking those sorts of questions too.
Why choose cats instead of dogs?
Good question. Because cats deserve to have research done too. No, this is literally...
We're really similar to them, right? We share 90%.
I mean, we're really...
of our genetic material, more so than with dogs?
Well, I don't know exactly about that point.
I think.
The point that the researchers made to me when I was speaking to them is they are the second most common pet, but they get hardly any research funding. So this is an actual pioneering, in a way, piece of research because, I mean, I have a cat.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. You could test out cancer drugs on humans, and if they work, you could also use those drugs on cats because
but the other way around.
Right. Or the other way around, or vice versa. Sure,
Correct.
Why not?
And that's sort of the most sort of obvious thing that can be done potentially now is that, we see that this drug is being used to treat this cancer that develops from this mutation in a human. We might actually have something suitable for a cat, or as you say, Gabe, so we could do it in reverse. But like very little funding, I didn't realize, is actually given to cat research. And so, there's this sort of disparity that dogs are sort of overfunded. Well, I shouldn't say overfunded, but are given quite a bit more than cat research. And what this is actually showing is that there is potentially value in researching cat biology further because it could also help humans and vice versa. And people like their pets. You know, I think this is another point. Like, the last thing a person wants to have is their pet get cancer. It's one of the most common causes of death in a pet. And then be told there's not really much we can do, or we can't do much because we don't know what to do. Whereas this is the sort of research that starts to sort of bring two different species, of course humans being the other one, together so that we can potentially find positive outcomes for both.
We talked about it last week, how bad a death of a pet the kind of grief that it can cause some people. Yeah, prolonged grief.
Well, and in this case, even if you are fundamentally all for cancer research in cats or dogs or any animals, the funding will rapidly open up if there's a mechanism through which that research into cat cancers can then ultimately apply to us human beings, right? Because at the end of the day,
We're what matters.
well, yeah, I really, I mean, you have to say that there is that disparity, there is that gap.
I think one example actually of this is that separate to this study, last year there was a paper published from a team out of the University of California, and they tested a human therapy used to treat squamous cell carcinomas in humans was used to treat cats. And
What kind of cancer is that? Sorry.
it's a cat of sort of the face, throat. It can.
Sorry, repeat that. It's a cancer of, you said cat?
What kind of cancer is that?
It's a cancer of the face, throat, mouth, and in this case, I think from memory, it was on the mouth of the cat that it was found. And a third of the cats had a positive response to the therapy, and I think on average, were able to live for another 6 months. I guess 6 months doesn't sound like a lot in human terms, but in cat terms, that's actually quite a bit. So that is an actual example of the way in which those therapies can be used to treat an animal, a domestic animal. And I spoke to those researchers, and they said that this new research is something that could help drive it further, particularly given some of the mutated genes that were found are clearly also the case in humans. So it supports that somewhat as well.
And another way of looking at it would be to say that until we all have chimpanzees as a pet, like, right, that would obviously be ideal genomically, but it's not the case. You don't have people with 1 or 2 or 3 chimpanzees in their apartment the way they do with cats. So until then, from a very human perspective, this is kind of the best mammalian stand-in to research.
Yeah, I think these the fact that also these are not lab animals is a key point. You know, primates have been used in lab research in the past, and obviously people don't like the idea of that happening. It feels too close to us, right? That's often what people will say. The fact that we're using real world animals here, developing these diseases spontaneously, it's actually I think, you know, there's this more emotive component where it's like, oh, actually, I might not be able to do something about my cat, but by helping, by researching what's happening in my cat, it could actually help me one day, or it could help other animals or a future animal that I have living with me. I think it's a different way of considering the way that research is done, because you have these real world models as opposed to, without wanting to, the lab is not the real world, I guess, is a point that most scientists would make. It is a controlled environment. We are looking at an uncontrolled development of disease.
And that cat would have gotten cancer anyways. It's not like it got blasted with cancer.
Yeah. Correct.
For science, that would have happened anyway, so there's nobody really lost there.
If any of you out there listening right now are interested in reading the article, it's on DW.com. It's called Remarkable New Cat Cancer Genome Could Benefit Humans. And if you want to go into the paper itself, it's in Science, and it's called The Oncogenome of the Domestic Cat. Matt, thanks for coming in today.
And Godspeed to you.
Thank you.
This next one is for any of you out there who've played not the dating, it's not even the dating game. It's the romantic interest game. You're into somebody. You're absolutely into them, and you're looking at them, you're spending time with them, hanging out, you're friends at this point maybe. Are they into you? If that's not one of the most crucial questions in the human experience, I don't know what is.
At what point do you tell them? Do you make that leap?
Right.
Reach out and say, I'm into you. Should you do that? Does it matter?
Right.
If you're a man or a woman?
Because the risk is that there's going to be a misperception and that you might accidentally end up in the friend zone.
Science Unscripted.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marius Stavang. I'm a researcher in psychology. I study dating and romantic relationships. And I published a paper recently on the friend zone or sexual misperception biases in Norwegian adolescents.
And we have to start there, Marius, because a lot of people don't know what the friend zone is. What is it? What is the friend zone?
So in our paper, we define the friend zone, or think of the friend zone as when you are romantically interested in someone and you're hanging out with them because you want something romantic to happen between you, but that other person don't pick up on you being romantically interested in them. They're just sort of hanging out with you because you think you want to be friends and you want to just hang out casually, and it's just being platonic. So they're not able to pick up your romantic interest, so to say.
And what did you find out about the friend zone in your paper?
We found out that Norwegian adolescent boys, they tend to overestimate how romantically interested girls are in them. So when adolescent boys, when they hang out with girls, they might often mistakenly, they believe that, that the girl, she's into me, we're hanging out because something's going to happen. And she just thinks that, he's hanging out with me because he want to be friends, he's such a great guy. And then suddenly she's in for a surprise. He expected something more. I think that a lot of adult women can relate to that situation, having experienced something like that. And men can relate to it, that they've been surprised that their romantic interest wasn't kind of mutual in that sense. And our research suggests that this tendency sort of strengthens in adolescence.
What I liked, Marius, about your paper or your research is it did something I hadn't even heard anyone talk about, which is to ask how often it happens the other way. How often is it that a guy is sitting there not realizing that this female friend of his, has a huge romantic or some romantic interest in him, and then she ends up getting friend zoned without wanting to? You looked into that, and what did you find?
It turns out that that situation is very rare. Almost none of the adolescent girls in our sample experience that. So if she is into a guy, it seems to be incredibly rare that he just discounts her romantic interest as friendless. It seems like guys are really, really sensitive at picking up on women's romantic interest in them. And you can also kind of say that, okay, so men are often blamed for being poor mind readers, but men appear to be sensitive to women's romantic interest when it actually is there. So women rarely find themselves in these kind of awkward situations where maybe she makes a move on him and he's like totally caught off guard and didn't expect it at all. It looks like he knows what's coming from her when she's into him.
Marius, help us and help our listeners understand this dance, as you called it before. Why does this happen? What can explain the differences between men and women with regard to how they perceive the opposite sex and their interest in them?
So there's probably a lot of social cultural factors at play here, but the underlying sort of theory here, why do men overestimate women's sexual romantic interest in them? That's the idea here, is that since it is pretty rare that women are into guys in the first place, like romantic interest from women becomes a scarcity for men. So once it is there, that one time it is there, it is important that men don't miss out on that opportunity. So the idea is that it's kind of safer for men to err on picking up it mistakenly more often than it is to not miss out on those situations where it actually is there. And the idea that since women often tend to like...
let me jump in there.
Yeah.
And from the other perspective, for women, their bias would be not to notice it because there's a surplus.
Yeah, exactly. And since a lot of since girls typically are in surplus of romantic interest from men, they sort of have to like choose the one who fits them better, right? So girls need sort of a strategy to reject guys in a soft manner. That's like the idea. So the explanation was here is still in development.
What should women do, Marius? Because a lot of them face the very, very uncomfortable situation of having to wonder whether this guy that they think or hope they're just friends with, because being friends is great. It can be platonic. Yeah. It should be able to happen that way. What should they do, knowing how often men are going to overestimate their romantic interest? How do they say it without saying it, or do it politely, or should they just be like, yo, real quick, not into you at all, let's be friends? What should they do?
I think both genders have a responsibility here. I think men have a responsibility to sort of try to be a bit cautious in their interpretations. Like if she's hanging out with you, it doesn't mean she's into you for more than just being friends, right? So I think men has to try to be a bit more cautious in how they interpret women, and women too. I think if a guy is like want to hang out one-to-one, spend a lot of time together, I think she has to like consider, okay, maybe he want to hang out for something more than just being friends. I think that the likelihood of that, she at least, it can be wise for her to consider. So I think both genders have a responsibility in this to try to stop and make an effort to interpret one another.
And to ask it from the other perspective, just to be fair, for the guys out there, how do they communicate better? Should they also just straight up say it? Like, hey, I like spending time with you, and I think it's more than just friendship. Do they have a kind of a moral responsibility to say that early on, or should they be more subtle? I don't know, a touch of the shoulder.
That's a very, very interesting question. It's very hard to answer because again, it appears that humans are very apprehensive about revealing their romantic interest in someone. It is very scary, and I don't think we really know why people find it so scary to reveal their romantic interest. It might be like the case that people are scared that they will be in for humiliation if they're rejected and so on.
But you're saying, despite that universal fear, it is better to be honest up front and just say it. I like you. I'm interested in you. That's the better way to go.
I think it's going to depend on the situation. If you're in this situation where you're say you're in the shoes of a guy then, and you're hanging out with a girl, and you imagine that you've grown pretty close to one another, you developed a good friendship, you're hanging out together one-to-one, then I think it is wise to eventually come clean and just tell them about your romantic interest. And I think that's better than sort of just making a move out of the blue, which some guys do, right? Perhaps like try to engage in some honest communication. But if you're sort of, if it's just this person you don't really know that well yet, and perhaps you aren't really that close, then I would be more cautious about it, because we are like social species, right? And people are sensitive to their reputation when it comes to these romantic relationships, and they don't want like everyone to know that, oh, this guy was into me and I wasn't into him at all. People don't want to have that on their social resume, right? So I think when you grow close enough to each other, it is good to like come clean and try to honestly communicate about your romantic interest. But of course, there's like a sort of boundary condition here somewhere.
Have you been friend zoned?
Absolutely, I've been friend-zoned several times, but I've actually been in a bit of a lucky situation in that I haven't typically been that confident in my own dating life. So I've kind of always sort of doubted whether a girl likes me in return. So I haven't had that sort of overconfidence telling me, oh, she's definitely into me. And then I'm like surprised that she isn't. So I haven't experienced those situations that I research myself, really. But I have definitely been friend-zoned.
And has your research or have the insights that you've gained into the complexity of this, have they helped you romantically?
Well, I think that I think dating is so complicated and it is so advanced that I do think it has helped me a little bit, and I do think my research helps people to navigate some of these situations and sort of understand them better, what is going on, because there's so many things that are confusing when it comes to dating, and it's so stressful. So just having a little bit of a knowledge. There are also telltale signs of what actually romantic interest looks like if you want to read up on other lines of my research.
And that was Marius Staveng talking to us from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And on a topic, I was going to say fascinating topic. It's maybe the most important thing that defines a lot of human lives, the attempt to understand or figure out whether the person that you're romantically interested or infatuated with.
I've been thinking on and off about this since I was, 6 years old. Megan Kirsch, Emily Piet, Ashley Lockwood, Edie Kashara. I didn't know when to or how to dance, how to start that dance. I know almost as much about it now as I did back then, I feel.
Yeah,
it is.
No, I see. There, I'd say I feel differently. I've been on this planet long enough. It's gone around the sun enough times that I think, at this point in my life, the signs and indications are far more clear. At least, and that might be Germany. Germans are more direct, more open in that regard, and you know it if it's there. If that little sparkle starts to happen, you're like, okay.
One tip Marius had after we turned the mics off, he said for people out there, one tip, don't be so picky. And he mentioned other literature or other papers that he's working on. One that's about to come out is called Too Picky to Be Picked.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for more information from Marius, and the title of the paper that we were referencing this whole time, Connor, you got it there, right?
Yep. Adolescent development of sexual misperception biases, females increasingly overperceived, males consistently underperceived, and that's in evolution and human behavior. We would obviously welcome any and all comments on this, and especially those from the area of this, or the flip side of it that we didn't talk about, because a lot of people go to their graves regretting, like, situations where only in retrospect did you realize, oh my God, she was absolutely into me, and I was too blind to even realize it.
And I friend-zoned her?
I friend-zoned her.
Oh, man.
I've done that before big time, and it's painful to look back and realize that blind idiot didn't see what was going on, because I kind of would have been interested.
Yeah.
And then I just missed it because I couldn't dance the dance.
What are your guys' experiences with the friend zone? Please let us know. We love it. We'll possibly read about them next week on the air.
Anonymously. If you want it to be anonymous, yeah. We will do that.
Depending.
Yeah. SU@dw.com.
Science.